that any EMP strike from any country targeting another will be viewed as an unacceptable threat to the government. Whether or not that government is still actually a functioning entity is increasingly open to speculation and will be the subject of an analytical report at the bottom of the hour. And now a message for the Northern California Independent Republic of Mount Shasta. The chair is against the door. Repeat, the chair is against the door. Part 1. We but teach bloody instructions, which, being taught, return to plague the inventor. William Shakespeare, Macbeth. Chapter 1. Black Mountain, Montreat College Chapel. For the moment, John Matherson felt at peace. He looked over at his wife, Michaela, and their 1-year-old daughter, Genevieve, nestled up between them, asleep in her father's arms. Michaela glanced over at him and their sleepy child, and silently mouthed, "I love you." And his world felt complete. The spring graduation concert was nearly finished. In a moment he'd have to stand up and deliver a closing benediction as president of Montreat College. Tori Gasper, a graduating senior, came up to the front of the gathering, and all fell silent, besides being the valedictorian. Tori was beloved for her gently pitched soprano voice. She nodded to the pianist accompanying her and began, "Try to remember the kind of September." No matter how many hundreds of times he heard that song, it always hit hard. It was, he felt, the anthem for the world they now lived in, for all that they had lost in this tragic world in the years after what everyone now called the day. As always, the opening line triggered a deep, warm memory. It was 5 years ago, on that fateful day, that he had met Michaela. In those first hours after the EMP attack, he was not yet sure what had happened, and with his mother-in-law, known as Grandma Jen, and Jennifer, John's daughter with his first wife, he decided to drive into the town of Black Mountain to see what was going on in the village. But his car wouldn't work, though Grandma Jen's old Ford Edsel started right up, which was one of the first clues that whatever had happened was beyond a mere local power failure. Nothing was moving on the interstate. Every car stalled. More of a warning to John of what would prove to be true, that it was an EMP that had shut things down. It was there that Michaela, standing beside her stalled BMW, had asked for help. John had sensed danger, however, that more than a few who would approach him for help might also very well take his car, with daughter and mother-in-law inside, so he refused and sped off, leaving Michaela behind. They would later laugh that this first encounter was a hell of an introduction, and the next morning he was quick to offer an apology for leaving her stranded. Michaela was now one of the most trusted and loved citizens of Black Mountain. As the nurse in charge of a cardiac surgical unit down in Charlotte, she was an invaluable asset, helping with the refugees and citizens who, within days, were overloading the town's medical facilities. It would be Michaela who was at John's bedside for days, when a simple cut on his hand turned deadly with septicemia and saved his life. But more important to John than what she did for him was the way she became part of his daughter Jennifer's life as well. Jennifer was a type 1 diabetic in a post-EMP world where, beyond the insulin he'd managed to get on that first day of chaos, no more life-saving medication would follow. As the months painfully dragged out, and the supply of insulin that John had stockpiled for his diabetic daughter began to fail for lack of refrigeration, it was Michaela who was by her side as well, until the last tragic day of his daughter's life. There was a day when Michaela had accompanied John to his college to see how things were faring. Standing together in the campus chapel, they listened as a student, who would later die fighting to defend the town, had practiced that song, and it was on that day John realized he was falling in love with Michaela. Tori continued to sing the Fantastics classic. John stirred from his musings. He looked over at her. She smiled wistfully, for of course she knew what he was remembering. The song always triggered his memories.